I had questions. Questions no one would or could answer. As a parent, I needed to know. I needed to know what had happened to her. My princess, my only child, gone, disappeared into the night, and the police refused to let me into her apartment, treating it as a crime scene. They told me to take a step back and let them do their job, not to get involved and just sit by the phone and wait for more information, but I couldn't. Could you have in that situation? So I did what any parent would do. I began poring over everything I had access to, looking for names of her friends, places she used to go, anything that could potentially help me find my girl again, Alison. After 2 days without any further information from the police, I was lay in bed, lost in purgatory between grief and hope, when it hit me like a truck. The call tracing app we downloaded for her phone. A couple of months back, Alison was getting grief from an ex who couldn't let her go, but as it was all on the phone, the police refused to get involved, so we downloaded an app that automatically recorded her calls in the hope it would help her case. I jumped out of bed and logged into the cloud that stored all her recordings. I wish I hadn't. To attempt to make sense of what I heard, here are the transcripts to the calls that led up to her disappearance. Call incoming, unsaved number, 2nd of July 2021, 1404.
Hi, who is this?
Hi, is this Rob? Or is Rob there?
Oh, I'm sorry, you have the wrong number.
Okay, my bad, don't worry about it, thanks.
Call ended.
Call incoming, unsaved number, 3rd of July 2021, 1530.
Hi, I don't have this number saved. Who is this?
Hi, hope you don't mind me calling you again.
Again?
When did you call me? Wait, is this the wrong number from yesterday?
It is. My name's Jared. I'll be honest, I liked the sound of your voice yesterday. I thought about you for the rest of the day. I had to speak to you again.
Wow, okay, bit forward. Well, unfortunately for you, I'm taken, sorry.
You sure?
What do you mean, am I sure? I should know if I'm taken or not. I'm just saying, are you sure you're taken? Not lying to me, are you? Yes, I'm sure. I'm going to hang up now.
Wait, Alice.
Call ended. Call incoming, Louise, 3rd of July 2021, 1540.
Lou, I'm being serious. It was freaking weird, okay? Okay, I believe you. I called you as soon as you text me. What do you mean he was going to call you by your name? Are you sure you didn't tell him your name? And what did you say back to him? No, I told him I was hanging up. And just as I pressed the button, I swear he was saying, "Wait, Alison," as if to tell me not to hang up. But I didn't tell him my name, I promise you. Have you rang your father? You know how overprotective he is. If you're worried, why haven't you called him? Don't want to bother him. Can you just stay at mine tonight? I know I'm overreacting, but I don't want to be alone. I'll rent whatever you want on Prime, and we can get pizza. Girl, you just needed to say pizza. I'll be right over. Let me just get ready.
Call ended. Call incoming, Louise, 3rd of July 2021, 1750.
Hey, how far away are you? Not far. Got off the bus a few stops early. Was getting a real weird vibe from this guy sitting at the back of the bus. Okay, not a problem. Wait, I see you coming up the drive. It's fine. Al, what? I see you. You just got to my drive. I'm upstairs in the bedroom window. I'm waving right now, see? You saw me, you waved back. Al, I'm not on your street yet. That's not me. What? Don't play with me. I can see you holding the phone up to your ear. Well, what am I wearing? Why are you still playing with me? You're in black trousers and a dark hoodie. I knew it was you as soon as I saw the hood up. Lame way to scare me, Lou, especially with why I called you over not cool. See, now you wave back. Giving up on the joke? Go to the bathroom, Al, or hide under your bed. That's not me. I swear. What are they doing now? Being serious. You need to tell me now. Because if that isn't you, then whoever it is walking closer to the house and is looking straight up at me. I still can't see their face yet. I'm running now, I'm coming. Put the phone down and call your dad or the police. You need to call someone. Can't. Please don't put the phone down. I don't want to be alone. I'm scared. They're getting closer. That's a man. I'm certain of it. Shit. What do I do? What do I do? Do you have any scissors or a knife or anything to protect yourself with? Go to somewhere you can hide. I'm almost at yours now. Oh God, oh God, oh God, they're in the house. Lou, please hurry. What do I do? What do I do? Get in the wardrobe or under the bed. You need to hide. Listen to me. Go hide now. Don't want to cry. I could hear him coming up the stairs.
Alison, you shouldn't have put the phone down. I only wanted to talk to you.
It's him. It's the guy who was calling me. Lou, he's here. What do I do, Lou? Lou? Are you still there? Lou? What's going on?
He only wanted to talk to you.
What? Who? What do you mean?
My brother. He's been away a while, and now he's out and back. He just wanted someone to talk to, so I gave him your number. It was his idea to pretend to be a wrong number. He said it would be sweet.
You know him! What the hell, Lou? Lou!
You really shouldn't have hung up on him. Has a terrible temper.
Get away from me, Lou! He's going to go...
911, what is your emergency?
I need an ambulance immediately.
Sir, you sound a little groggy or confused. Can you tell me exactly what is wrong?
I just woke up, and my bed is soaked in blood. I feel really weak.
Okay, sir, I need you to stay with me. Are you in any pain?
Yes, and it is only in one spot.
Okay, sir, remain calm for me. Where are you hurting?
Oh my God! Ah!
Sir, calm down. What is wrong?
The blood and pain. It's in my crotch. My penis is missing. Ah!
Sir, look around you. Where are you? Can you describe your surroundings?
Yes, I'm in my bedroom. There's a small metal tray sitting on the nightstand. It has what looks like a curved needle, thread, some sort of spray disinfectant, and a scalpel.
Okay, sir, let me confirm your address, and I'll send police and rescue. Do not try to move, or you may further hurt yourself, okay?
Yes, ma'am. I live at... My bedroom's on the second floor. Please, hurry. I feel... woozy.
Sir? Sir, are you still with me? Yes, ma'am. Hi, my name is Alice. I am the wife of the man that called you. He is currently unable to answer right now, as it looks like the sedative I gave him finally started working again. What do you mean? Miss, can you tell me what exactly is going on here? My husband and I share a house with a female friend of ours. I work nights at the hospital in the operating room. I am a surgeon there and tend to work a lot of hours away from my husband. Yes, ma'am, but why is your husband lying in a pool of his own blood, missing his manhood? Oh, that... You see, I have had a sneaky suspicion for over a month now that my dear husband was cheating on me with that tramp of a roommate. I tried setting him down on 3 separate occasions to voice my suspicions, but he always assured me nothing was wrong. Tell me, dear, have you ever had your woman's intuition tell you something, and you knew for an absolute fact it was true? Yes, but... Exactly. So you understand I had to make sure I was right? 2 weeks ago, I had security cameras installed without him noticing, and within a couple of days, I had all the proof I needed. You mean? Yes, ma'am. He would wait until about an hour after I left for work and would pull her into our bedroom. He defiled our marriage and was kissing her all night while I was gone. She would always sneak out of the room about an hour before I was due home and be back in her room when I got there. Ma'am, I am so sorry he did that to you. I did not just cut it off. I made sure that I did it with the most delicate of surgical precision. I administered a strong sedative to him after he lay down in bed, and once he was out cold, I went to work. I saved it, though. I kept it in a cooler of ice, just in case he woke up and called for help. Wow, I have no words for this. I loved my husband and cooked meals for him that I knew absolutely nothing about, but did so because I loved him every day. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him and have kids with him, but he ruined it all. What about the other woman? She lives there too, right? Oh, do not worry about her. I made sure she did not wake up during the surgery. See, I made sure my plans for her were done about a week ago. My husband thought she was on a trip, and he never thought once to look in her room for her. After all, why would he? Especially after he read the letter that I wrote in her handwriting. Can you tell me if your husband is still conscious, ma'am? Oh, yes, but with the sedative I gave him, he will probably sleep like a baby until your ambulances and police arrive. The surgery on him went well, though. I consider it some of my best work, especially given all the fine nerve endings and the high concentration of blood vessels. Are you okay, ma'am? Dear, I have never felt better. I was mad at first. He was my high school sweetheart. We went to the same college together, and as soon as we both had graduated, he proposed. I loved that man more than life itself. That's what made his betrayal of our love so painful. I see. My mother used to tell me when I was a kid to always listen to my intuition, since a woman's intuition is never wrong. Girl, she was right. I still cannot believe that he would turn his back on our love. I understand your pain, but why not just divorce him? Men nowadays never seem to be held to the same standards that we are as women. A woman cheats on her husband and she is branded a whore. A man cheats and it's just treated like business as usual. It is not fair. I understand that, but castration? Yes. You see, so many times men get away with stuff like this, and we are expected as women to keep putting up with it over and over like a punching bag. I had to make sure that he learned the hard way that it does not pay to go through life thinking with his penis and not his head. So I eliminated it from the equation. I see. Don't patronize me like that. Have you ever had a man cheat on you? Yes, ma'am, but that is not important here. Well, I hear the boys in blue coming up the driveway now. Let me go wash my hands and greet them at the door. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful night. Ma'am? Ma'am?
The caller was rushed to the hospital nearby, and the doctors and surgeons were able to reattach his severed appendages. His wife willingly surrendered herself to the police. It was noted in the police reports and in her statement that the wife was very cold in her demeanor, almost emotionless. The only time she showed anything was when she discussed the surgery and her pride in her handiwork. The roommate was not found in the home, and as of now, police are unsure of her current status. The lesson to be learned from this? Men, treat your wife well and never cheat, or else your woman may exact her own pound of flesh in revenge. Snip, snip.
I was in a toxic, borderline abusive friendship with a girl from the ages of 9 to 12. Here's some background information to give you a little understanding as to what my life was like back in the late 2000s, early 2010s. I grew up in a very tumultuous household. My parents hated each other, and my extended family, along with my immediate, were plagued by mental illness and drug addiction. So, needless to say, I was a very anxious child who was drawn to unstable people, and suffice it to say, they were drawn to me. I was a shy 11-year-old girl who, like many others before me, used the internet as a way to vent my frustrations and anger about my home life. This was the time where AOL was the main source of communication used between friends, and I was no stranger to this, along with MySpace and Facebook. However, I wasn't like the typical preteens of this era, or so I thought. I kept my profiles private, never accepted a follow or a friend request that I didn't know, and never shared my location on these said profiles. This is the part where I introduce Tanya. Tanya isn't her name, of course, as I don't want to use her real name in case she just happens to read this thread, watches the YouTube channel, or listens to the podcast. So we'll just call her Tanya. Tanya and I met in elementary school, one of the points in my life where my family situation was quite volatile, and in retrospect, I think she sensed this. I was vulnerable, and Tanya took advantage of my innocence. She never really displayed any signs of her true intentions in the beginning, as they never usually do. She would do shady things every now and again, manipulate me into begging my mom to stay on the computer until the wee hours of the morning so we could go on not-safe-for-work websites, ghost me when I didn't give her my favorite pen, or yell at me when I couldn't perfect a guitar solo on Guitar Hero. She did some other things to me that I believe my brain blocked out due to trauma. My mom didn't like her either. Parents always have a weird intuition when it comes to friends, and I wish to God I would have listened to my mom before Tanya did what she did to me. Tanya's behavior changed for the worse when we turned 11. Tanya was openly jealous of my success in school. Granted, she was incredibly smart herself, but she always made it a point to mock me for having great grades and would almost comment that since I wasn't pretty enough, having good grades would be a nice balance. Nice? Right. It took me a while to build my self-esteem up after all the snide remarks she would make about my weight and my face, and only now, as a 22-year-old, do I think that I'm beautiful and have a wonderful figure. Anyways, back to Tanya. As a result of her jealousy and growing resentment towards me, she began to plot my downfall. I made no exaggeration either. This girl literally tried to ruin my self-worth even more than she already had. It started in 6th grade. Tanya and I were remarkably close that year, and I wanted to do everything with her. We would talk all day in school, and we would chat all night on AIM. On one particular evening, Tanya and I were talking about boys. Being that we were hormonal preteens, our conversations would usually turn onto who we liked in school that day. Being that I had a horrible relationship with my father, I didn't really trust boys, even from an early age, so it was rare if I developed a crush on one. I remember Tanya and I's conversation going a little something like this. "Do you know Mark, the kid in class?" "Yeah, why?" "I heard he likes you." "What? No way." "Totally. He told me. You want me to talk to him and give him your username?" "Yes, of course." "Oh my God, thank you, Tanya." My heart was racing. A boy liked me? Impossible. When Tanya told me that she would give Mark my username for AIM, I nearly exploded in my seat. 11-year-old me couldn't believe I was going to have my first real boyfriend. How wrong was I? Fast forward to the next night. I was getting ready for bed when I heard the famous AOL ding sound off on my iPod Touch. You know the sound I'm talking about. When I checked the notification, it was a message from MarkyBoy99. I don't remember his username, so we'll just go with something like this. I turned red. Tanya had really talked to Mark and gave him my user. She was truly the best. He messaged me with the usual, "Hey," emphasis on the 3 Ys, and I responded, "Hey." I didn't want to come off as desperate, so I only used 1 Y. Not even 1 minute later, he messaged me back. We talked all night about everything. Our days, how school was, what type of silly bands we liked. Typical 11-year-old stuff. I have to admit, I was smitten right off the bat. I think it was partly because I had never really had a boy like me before, and the other part being that my self-esteem was so low that I never thought a boy would be capable of liking me. Also, it could have been because Mark was one of the most popular boys in school at that time. He played football, was mouthy to the teachers, and was extremely outgoing. All the things a young girl would be attracted to. We talked for months. My puppy love growing for him more and more every time we chatted. Of course, I never spoke to him on the phone, nor did I get his phone number, because why would you do that, right? All the while I was speaking to him, Tanya would be gassing me up, telling me how proud she was of me, and that I deserved a boyfriend. My suspicions of Mark only began to grow when I attempted to approach him during school hours. Again, I had anxiety, so I would never really speak to Mark outside of AIM. When I went to talk to him, Mark looked confused, as if he'd never had a conversation with me before in his life. He turned away from me on the playground and walked to be with his other friends. Huh? Weird. This wasn't like him. He was usually so chatty with me online that I expected him to welcome me with open arms in person. My ego was bruised. My little 11-year-old mind tried to rationalize this behavior by chalking it up to him not wanting to talk to the nerd since he was so popular and that he just preferred to keep our relationship online. I told Tanya the news, and she seemed to be generally heartbroken for me. She was just as angry as I was and vowed to confront Mark later that day during music class. I was happy. Tanya had my back as far as I knew. She was going to tell Mark off about him being a total jerk to me. Well, it worked. Later that night, I got a message from Mark telling me how sorry he was for ignoring me and that he was just going through some family things. Back in love I was, I didn't care that Mark ignored me during school. I didn't care that he rejected my advances in person. As long as I had him to talk to online and Tanya's support, I was fine. I even told my mom about him, and she was extremely happy for me as well. Another month passed, and it was March 31st, 2011. Mark messaged me and told me that he had something very important to tell me the next day. The anxiety began. What was it? What did he have to tell me? At that point, I considered myself and Mark to be dating, so I was anxious that he was either going to break it off with me or that he was going to make us public in school the next day. I told my mom and Tanya, almost on the verge of tears with how excited and nervous I was. Well, the next day, April 1st, 2011 rolled around, and this is what followed. It was around 7 p.m., and I was on Club Penguin as I usually was, until I heard a familiar ding. It was Mark. It was time for the news I'd been waiting for all day. Hey, babe. Oh my God, hey. I've been waiting for you to chat me all night. Sorry, babe. I was at practice. Are you ready for the news? I was shaking with anticipation at this point. Even writing this now, a whole swell of emotions are resurfacing. Yes, of course. It was then that Mark sent me a picture. I opened it, only it wasn't Mark. It was Tanya, and she was holding a handwritten sign that said, Happy April Fool's Day, XD. At first, I started laughing, and I mean it was an ugly laugh. Of course it was a prank. Tanya had gotten me so good, right? Right? Well, wrong. It was then that the realization hit me that I started to sob. I felt betrayed and like a loser. Tanya had been behind Mark all along, and she had been planning this big joke since October of 2010. She had been so jealous that she pretended to be someone else and string along my emotions, which she knew I was already in a rough place mentally. She told me that I was stupid to even think that Mark would even like me in the first place, and that I was dumb for not asking for his number. Tanya had been at this for 6 months. An 11-year-old girl plotted Mark, used him to make me think that a boy liked me, and tricked me into believing that I had a boyfriend, all the while telling me when we hung out that she was happy for me and that Mark and I were a cute couple. I told my mom, who then called her mom. My mom was livid, to say the least. She told Tanya's mom to tell her daughter never to speak to me again. I was crushed. My best friend of 3 years had catfished me because she simply wanted to play a joke. I was loyal to her, and she toyed with my emotions because she could. Tanya had tried multiple times to guilt-trip me into being her friend again in the months that followed, leading into 7th grade. One of the more memorable and honestly messed up times when she messaged me a few days after my birthday in August to tell me that her mother had just died in a horrible car crash. Her body was dismembered and they could only find her head and wedding ring. As anyone would be, I was in tears. Tanya's mother was nothing but lovely to me, and learning that she died in such a violent way crushed my soul. I started talking to Tanya again, and when her mom's funeral would be, Tanya then revealed to me seconds later, after speaking to her about the grisly details over her mother's passing, that she was kidding and was pranking me again, and that I was stupid to believe her. She even sent a video of her laughing at me. I was disgusted. Who would even say something like that? What now 12-year-old would message someone that their mother was dismembered in a car crash? She then revealed her ugly and quite frankly evil intentions when we were at the beginning of 7th grade, and she became friends with a girl named Kaylee. They both invited me to sit at their lunch table, and because I was desperate for friends, I stupidly accepted, only to be met with hordes of insults and laughter behind my back every chance I wasn't looking. Tanya then messaged me one night telling me to kill myself, and that the world would be a much better place without me in it. She had Kaylee tell me to go jump off a bridge. Tanya told me that she hated me and was never really my friend to begin with, that I deserved all the pain she put me through the year prior. I again told my mom, who then called the police. She had had enough of Tanya, and so had I. For 4 years I put up with Tanya's malicious behavior, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. My mom made me delete my AIM account, and Tanya's mom told her to never contact me again or else. My mom Also advised me to move lunch tables, but I was hell-bent on not letting Tanya win. For the entirety of 7th grade, I sat at the same table as Tanya. Only I spoke to my friends at the other side of the table. I never spoke to her, looked at her, or gave her any sort of attention. Kaylee was scared to death of me afterward, too, as the police had gotten in contact with her family as well. It's been 10 years, and I still haven't spoken to Tanya. I'm now 22 years old, have 2 bachelor's degrees, one in psychology and the other in history, and I am now working towards my master's in clinical social work. Tanya did other things to me, too, that I could write a whole other story about, but I think writing this one helped give me closure on the part of my childhood that scarred me for years. I thank God for my mom stepping in when she did, because I don't know where I'd be without her. As for Tanya, I don't know where she is or what she's doing, and I'd really rather not. On the off chance she stumbles upon this story, I have a message for her. Your jealousy and wishes for death upon me did not win, and I truly hope that karma does not come around one day to bite you in the ass. Tanya, let's never meet again.
I've had a few scary encounters in my life. Not sure if that means that I'm old or just a creep magnet, but this one still creeps me out. In the early 80s, when I was 8, my family was visiting my uncle who lived in backwoods Missouri. He lived on a lot of land, and the only other people who really even lived on the street were relatives, so no one else just ever happened to be out there. This meant no one ever locked their doors because random family members were always coming by for this or that. One night while we were there, my parents and aunt and uncle decided to go to a nearby town to go bowling because bowling. My brothers, who were 11 and 12, my female cousins, 6 and 14, and I'm female, stayed home. It was still daylight when the adults left, but it started raining pretty hard and got dark quickly. We used to play this game that was essentially hide and seek in the dark house, but we cleverly called it vampire. There was a thin, little mattress on the living room floor that some of the kids would sleep on at night, so the person who was it would lie on the mattress and fold it over themselves like a coffin and count down to midnight. When they got to midnight, they went looking for you. Again, all of the lights are off, and you tried to make it back to the coffin before you got caught. Because the house was in the country, it was pitch black at night. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. What this meant for the game was that, 1, you couldn't tell where the vampire was looking, so you just had to make a break for it, and 2, if you were extremely lazy, and I'm sure by now you can guess which one of us met those standards, you could hide in the living room with a coffin and get to base quickly. Ben, my 11-year-old brother, was it and was doing the normal countdown. I was hiding maybe 6 feet from him. As he's counting, there's a flash of lightning. I don't know if I was already looking at the living room window or if the lightning made me look, but with the backlight of the lightning, I see a man with his face against the window. He had his hands on each side of his face as if he's trying to peer in and looks exactly like the stereotypical creepster, heavyset, scraggly beard, etc. I could feel every hair on my body standing on end. Immediately, I began trying to convince myself that I didn't see what I saw, but then Ben sternly whispered, "If anyone is hiding in here, stay still." I sort of croaked out an "I'm here" right as there was another flash of lightning. Creepster was still there, but no longer trying to look in the window. Instead, he was now looking toward the front door. Ben and I immediately knew what was coming next. From where he was standing, Creepster was probably only 5 feet from the front door. Ben was the same distance, but there was a couch between him and the door. Ben leapt over the couch and locked the door right as Creepster started trying the handle. At this point, I guess Ben decided that it was best to let Creepster know that people were home and that we knew he was there, because he flipped on the porch light and then started turning on the lights in the house. This is going to sound weird, but I was too terrified to panic. Having said that, I was relying completely on Ben to know and tell me what to do. He told me to go lock the other doors and was yelling for everyone else to come out and to lock all of the windows. Honestly, the next few minutes are hazy in my mind. I remember everything up until this point extremely clearly. Then I remember the end very clearly, but I'm less clear about the middle. I know that I locked the side door and then the sliding glass door on the back of the house. When we've talked about it over the years, some people remember us seeing him out the back door as well. I don't think I remember that. What I clearly recall is locking the sliding glass door and standing there frozen and hearing Ben in a very calm but firm voice say, "Close the curtain. Listen to me, okay? Close the curtain." So I did. Ben can't remember that part, and I just remember my fear and Ben's voice, so I'm not sure if I saw Creepster in the backyard or not. We tried to call the police, but my aunt and uncle had a stupid party line and it wouldn't work, whether from the storm or from a neighbor leaving it off the hook or whatever. For the record, they are the only people I've ever known with a party line, so this wasn't normal to me either. But for those of you who don't know what that is, in really rural areas, multiple people on the street would actually share a phone line. It would have different rings for different households, but you could pick up the phone and listen to your neighbor's conversation. We also tried to summon help on my uncle's CB radio, but couldn't reach anyone. My uncle was a hunter, so he had a gun rack full of rifles in his room, but my older cousin was on an out-of-town hunting trip and took them with him. All we could find was a BB gun that looked like a real rifle. I vividly remember Ben putting me on phone duty and Scott, my older brother, on CB duty, while he stood watch at the little square window on the front door with the BB gun. Maybe 30 minutes later, Ben said, "He's back. He's coming up the driveway." The rest of us froze in fear, but Ben opened the front door and stepped out on the porch, pointed the gun, and said, "Get out of here right now." Then we hear our cousin Kyle, who lived down the road a bit, say, "You know that's a BB gun, right?" Even though Kyle was only 15, I remember that we felt like we had been saved when he showed up. Kyle seemed really skeptical of our story, like we were playing a trick on him, even though we had no idea that he was coming. But he stayed with us until our parents came home. Honestly, I don't remember if we even told our parents what happened when they got home. There was definitely no police involvement though. We just went on with our trip, but we never played Vampire again without some mention of that night. Edit. I just talked to Ben. First, he doesn't have an account, but is so pleased that everyone thinks he handled himself well. Second, he said the story was pretty spot on to how he remembers it, but that the guy at the back door, when we talked about it before, I thought he didn't remember that part, so I was confused on that. He said that as I was locking the side door, we saw Creepster moving around to the back of the house, so Ben told me to hurry and lock the sliding glass door. Those doors are right around the corner from each other, so I was closest. According to Ben, and this is what I thought happened, but I didn't want to say it unless I was positive. As soon as I flipped the lock on the back door, the guy was standing there, just looking in at me. I stood there for a couple of beats looking at him, and that's when Ben told me to close the curtain. We also saw him in the front yard one more time after that. I remembered this all along, but wanted to check with Ben to make sure he also remembered it before I added it in. It was a large front yard with a long gravel driveway. Off to one side of the driveway, quite a ways from the house, was a spot where my cousins parked cars they were working on. I know, so stereotypical. While we were on watch, we saw Creepster messing with one of the cars. It was actually Kyle's. When he couldn't get it started, he walked into the woods that ran beside the house. We didn't see him again after that.
My son, Thomas, never had a shortage of friends. Always the class clown, always the likable, relatable, funny goof that he was. He passed away 2 months ago. He jumped off an overpass and landed on his neck. He was 17, and I'm writing this for him because he wanted me to. I know a lot of you know about the internet and the dark web and all that. The thing is, I didn't. And maybe if I had, my son would still be alive. Please, stay off the dark web. The game is called Veritatem Dicere, and I'm an American English speaker, but I believe it means something along the lines of to tell the truth in Latin. I only began to notice things after his last few months. Troubles at school, which he had never had. He sat behind a girl in his class and cut a chunk of hair off her head. He was suspended. I would look through the history on his computer to find violent videos, people being murdered and sodomized, video after video, white powder substance all over his room, salt lining his windows. We took him to the dentist because of an infection on one side of his mouth. The dentist examined him and pulled me aside to let me know that my son had pulled out and crushed 3 teeth in his mouth himself. The last straw was when I caught him in the bathroom about 2 months before he died. He was carving some sort of symbol into his arm on a live stream. I figured his odd behavior must be a cry for help, thinking maybe he was depressed or suicidal. He was hospitalized for a week and then released. 2 weeks later, my son died. A month before my son died, every person in my family received an email. Each one read, "Ask Thomas about the little girl who died down the street. Ask him what he knows. Make him tell the truth." The email came from an anonymous sender, and when confronted with it, Thomas began to get very nervous and visibly sick. "Who sent it, Thomas? I want to know. If this is some sick prank to scare your little sister, it's not funny." I leaned against the counter and crossed my arms. The email pulled up on the laptop in front of my son. He kept his head low, avoiding eye contact with me, staring at his fingers in his lap. "I don't know what it is, Mom. Probably some spam email or something," he muttered, almost looking up at me, but quickly averted his gaze. "A spam email that happens to have your name in it and information on the crime committed down the street a few weeks ago? I don't think so." I glanced at the screen for a moment. "So, do you know something you're not telling your father and I about this?" I said, looking back at him again. "No." Tears welled up in his eyes as he stared at the computer screen. "I don't know anything." "What is going on with you, Thomas? This is so unlike you. Please, if you're not okay, please just tell us. We want to help you. We want our Tom back." I put my hand in his, but he quickly pulled away and wiped his eyes quicker. "I don't know anything, Mom. I already told you I'm fine." He got up abruptly and started towards the doorway. Now, I could feel the tears begin to form in my eyes as I saw him walk away. My son was almost unrecognizable. He was skin and bones, purple bags under his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. His clothes hung and bagged on him as I saw him walk to the door. "I love you," I squeaked out. He stopped for a moment and looked back at me, and I swear to God, I'd never seen more pain in someone's eyes than I saw in his in that moment. He let a tear fall as he turned away again, his back to me now. "I love you, Mama," he croaked out before exiting the room quickly. He began to look worse as time went on. Thin, frail, tired, fatigued. My husband and I found therapists, took him to doctors, pulled him out of school, and did everything we thought was right leading up to my son's suicide. About a week after his death, I felt like half of me was missing. I couldn't move or talk or get out of bed, and I didn't. All I could do was think about Thomas, and the guilt ate me alive. I knew my email had to be overflowing with emails from clients at work, and I knew I'd have to get back to work soon. For me, for my husband, for my daughter. 2 weeks later, I finally checked it. At the very top of my inbox was an email with an anonymous sender and no subject. I began to tear up, wishing whoever it was would just leave me alone and let me grieve. But curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. I wish I hadn't. The email was nothing but 9 black words that read, "He did it, and the game is not over."
When I was about 6 years old, around 2004, my mom started taking my sister and I to Dr. Daniel's pediatric dental office. The dental center was located inside a giant yellow mansion that also doubled as Dr. Daniel's house. It was honestly gorgeous. When I first started going to the dentist, I was extremely shy and actually suffered from selective mutism and had a lot of autistic-like tendencies. Needless to say, I relied heavily on my mother's comfort and for someone to give me a voice because it was extremely anxiety-inducing for me to talk to strangers, especially men for some reason. When my sister and I got called in from the waiting room, my mom followed us to the office until she was told by Dr. Daniels that parents were not allowed to be with their children as it taught kids independence, to which my mom complied to. Once in there, he immediately separated my sister and I, and in reaction to that, I cried because I felt so scared. Dr. Daniels did not like crying, so he grabbed me and put his hands over my mouth and nose, shook me, and aggressively warned me that if I continued to cry and scare the other kids, that he would make my situation a lot worse. Obviously, this scared me even more, so I started to cry again. Dr. Daniels had enough and took me into his house part of the dentist office where he screamed at me again, grabbed me by the neck, and shoved me. His hygienist Judy came over and told me if I continued to cry, she would spank me so hard I wouldn't know what had hit me. Afterwards, he gave me a juice concoction and left me alone in his house for about 5 minutes until he took me back into the dental office and did work on my teeth. I guess I just instinctively knew that if I wanted to survive, I just had to act like I was not terrified and hold on the tears. All I wanted was my mommy. After the first appointment, my sister and I told my mom that we were scared of the dentist and that he was a mean man, but she just took it as me being an anxious child, so we continued to see him. Each visit was just as terrifying. Every time we pulled into the mansion, my heart just melted away inside my chest. I was so scared. It was no longer pretty to look at. Every time we went to the dentist, Dr. Daniels, or the tooth man as he called himself, always had us heavy dental work procedures done. We had seals done on several baby teeth and plenty of teeth removed, some with his fingers, with no regards to pain level at all. And often when having a tooth removal or seals done, your mouth had to be opened up with a retractor. He would leave us there with the retractor on for about 45 minutes or so before he came to work on our teeth. Sometimes he would eat his lunch while we sat there with our mouth open. Probably one of the worst pains I have ever felt in my life. I remember one time when I was in about 3rd grade, I had been leaned down in the chair waiting with the retractor on for an hour. I was in so much pain I couldn't take it. I sat up on the chair and tried to scream and cry as loud as I could. Dr. Daniels came rushing over, angry as could be, took my retractors off, and then took me back into his house part again where he screamed at me for being a big baby and scaring all the other kids. I was so sad in myself because I hadn't cried in so long. He then took me back to the dental chair and then pinned me down to my seat in a straitjacket. He put my retractors back on and said that I would have to wait longer because I caused such a scene. All I could do was shed silent tears and drool everywhere, and I couldn't even wipe it because he locked up my arms. Afterwards, my mouth would become so swollen and filled with rashes. It hurt to talk for days. It would leave bruises and swells as soon as I left his chair. He would often tell my mother I was a difficult patient if I so much as winced at his torture. Once he removed 6 of my teeth at once and I could barely eat. While he ripped out teeth, he would often sing songs. It was so Sweeney Todd-like. When I was in the 7th grade, I started getting some new braces and we started seeing an orthodontist. Not long after that, we stopped seeing Dr. Dan and started seeing a new dentist who was actually nice. I had never known that getting your teeth cleaned didn't have to feel like going through a saw trap. I think my mom took us out of Dr. Dan's practice when the orthodontist looked at our dental records and saw a lot of unnecessary procedures being done on our mouths. Not long ago, I was having a conversation with a friend about our childhood fears, and instantly my mind went to the tooth man. Curious, I Googled him to see what had happened to him, and to my happiness, the practice was shut down. Also left under his name was a Yelp page that was still left up. The page was filled with numerous one-star reviews from former patients that were once abused as kids in his office, using the page as an outlet to express their trauma. I started to cry because their experiences were so close and some identical as to what I went through when I was a kid. It was so sad, but at the same time really validating to know that I was not alone. A lot of the procedures we went through were just a scam for him to collect money off our parents' insurance. And now that I think about it, he probably was so adamant on us not crying and screaming for help because he didn't want parents to hear and come and see what was going on. I shake thinking about this. I really pray that he hasn't opened up another practice somewhere else. I know it's hard not to blame parents in the situation, but the truth is this man was a swift abuser. For every bruise and swell we had, he would have dental explanations that would make the parents feel stupid for asking. He was an authority figure. I don't blame my mom for not believing us. She knew he was firm, but probably thought we were confusing firmness with meanness. To be honest, even writing this, the torture was so wild it actually sounds made up. She eventually did come around. She's not alone, as there were hundreds and hundreds of parents that were duped and deceived by him. To Dr. Dan, please never let us meet again, and to any parent reading this, if you are ever told not to go in with your child to an appointment, something's really not right.